Hello, everybody. This is Gary Johnson, and I am coming to you talking about relationship selling and what that entails, what that looks like. I've come up with 9 commandments. You all out there heard of the 10 commandments. These are the 9 commandments of consultative relationship selling. So I want to kind of go through those with you and talk about why I feel these are so important in order for you to be successful selling. And really what I like to say is consulting your clients. I really feel like that's what they're looking for. Nobody ever wants to be sold anything. People want to buy things, and they want to make informed decisions, and it's up to us as sales professionals to help them do that. So I want to walk through with you today what that is and how that works. And so with that said, let me move this out of the way a little bit. Let's kind of go through some of the things we're going to get into. But first things first, we're going to talk about that, understanding the 9 commandments. It says 10, but it's actually the 9 commandments of relationship selling. Remember that relationship selling is a process. It's not a magic potion. And if you've done your homework, it's okay to end with no and avoiding the dreaded let's pretend. So actually, I want to talk about first things first and really what that is. It all starts with you. The only way relationship selling works is if you make it work. Relationship selling is 100% a process. Relationship selling is a methodology. It's a proven system. This particular way of selling has been proven out in all walks of life and all types of products, services, or solutions. This particular methodology has shown significant success in the marketplace, so that's good to know. Relationship selling only works if you're willing to follow steps. I can tell you out there, if you are a person that likes to wing it and fly by the seat of your pants, this type of program is not going to work for you. And quite honestly, I'm not sure that I would ever suggest that type of approach for anyone out there who really is looking at sales as a profession. I think you're much better off to use a system, a process, using that for many reasons, one of which is if I don't use a process, there's never any way for me to go back and dissect or analyze why something went really well in a particular conversation with a client or why things went poorly if I'm winging it. So that's another benefit of this process. And you must be willing to master the steps to become a master. As the famous philosopher Yoda once said, there is no try, there is only do or not do. And I think with this particular process, it's 100% let's do it. There's no reason not to follow a system like this other than I don't like change. And that's what you might hear somebody say who's been selling a certain way for the last 3 years, 5 years for their career. I understand that, but I'm going to promise you that these steps will make you much more polished in front of the client. And all of us in sales want to look more polished in front of our customer. This will definitely do that for you. So let's go ahead and jump into this. I'm going to be moving myself around here a little bit so I get out of the way. The 9 commandments of relationship selling. The first thing I want to talk to you about, I'm sorry, I'm going to just stick myself down in the bottom right corner here. The first thing that I want to talk to you about is people buy from people. I think we all have heard that for many, many years. What does that really mean? People buy from people. Well, we know we're not robots and people buy from us. What does that really mean? It means that having great products, is that important? Of course it is. Do all of us as salespeople want to represent an organization that has great products? Absolutely. Does having great product knowledge make us more powerful? Of course. Absolutely it does. But at the end of the day, people buy from people because they trust them. And that's really at the end of the day what consultative selling is going to do for us is it's going to help us establish rapport and to build trust with our clientele. And that's why I start with it as commandment number 1. So first things first, our goal is to build trust. So you might be asking yourself, well, how do I do that? What are some things I can do to build trust? First and foremost is you never want to come across as pushy. There are a lot of salespeople out there that do the kind of hard sell and are aggressive in their posture, and that's really not what consultative salespeople do. It's very difficult to build trust when you're coming across as very, very pushy, so you want to be careful with that. B, this is a great point, be more worried about being interested in them than being interesting to them. And it's kind of funny how this works because the more interested you are, the more interesting you become. So being interested, and there's a lot of ways we're going to talk about in this webinar on how to become interested in your client or how they can feel as though you're interested in them. We're going to look at that. Asking and caring about their needs, really, really important. The last thing people want to hear is how great your product is. Who cares how great your product is? What they want to hear is, tell me more about your situation or your problem. Let me understand that more clearly. That way, we can determine whether or not I have a solution that will help you. And we might come to the end and find out that I don't. And that's really what they want to hear. They don't want to hear how great your product is. Everybody thinks their product is great. What they really want to make sure of is that you understand their needs. Genuine, not pretend knowledge builds confidence that in turn builds trust. What do I mean by that? A lot of people out there selling products try to pretend as though they know what they're talking about. And I think that's dangerous. I think you're much better off to say, I'm not sure. Let me find out. That's a great question. Let me find out what my technical team thinks, than to wing it. As soon as you wing it or you pretend like you know, and you're talking to a highly qualified client or an engineer or someone who really understands their stuff, they might just be testing you and asking you questions that just to see what your knowledge is. And as soon as you start to act like you know and you don't, you're dead in the water. So you're much better off to build product knowledge. Let me make this point. There's many of you out in the audience that are getting ready to sell a new product. And you're saying to yourself, gosh, I want to have all the product knowledge I can before I ever start selling. That's not going to happen. That's not a good philosophy, because you're going to starve. Many of you out there that are either working in a straight commission environment or a highly leveraged bonus environment, you just can't do that. It's going to take you too long to know everything you need to know. You need to know enough. And you need to know enough of how to probe and ask questions properly, know some of the key mechanics of your particular product, service, or solution, and then lean on your technical people as you can until you gain that knowledge over time. So I want to make sure that we talk about that. Act like a consultant, not a salesperson. As I said earlier, nobody wants to be sold. Everybody wants to buy something. And the more you come across as selling, the more I feel cheapened in this process, that I'm just a fresh piece of meat sitting in front of you, and it doesn't matter whether your product's a great fit for me or not, you're just going to sell me. And that, nobody wants to feel that way. So those are some things we can do to build trust. Trust is the foundation of our relationship with a customer. We've got to build that. We're going to walk through some more of those things as we go, but a critical element of your success. Commandment number 2, emotions, not logic, drive decision making. There's a lot of us that think, hey, people make decisions based on logic. Well, actually, they don't. I don't remember who it was, if it was the former CEO of Yahoo or one of those organizations. I thought it was Yahoo, that said that research that he has done shows that emotions are up to 35 times more powerful than logic. And so when you're talking to someone about making a purchasing decision, remember that their emotional decision making is going to be much, much more powerful than is their logic. Then what happens is they end up using their logic and facts to support their emotional decision. So we don't have time in this webinar to go through that. It's a whole nother webinar to talk about the whole emotional decision-making process, but it is 100% fact that people use a lot of emotion, things that have happened to them in the past, good decisions, bad decisions, life experiences. All those things are emotional, and they are things that we will draw upon as we're making decisions. How we make our customers feel is critical regarding their willingness to buy. And I love this acronym MMFS. It comes from Mary Kay Ash from Mary Kay Cosmetics, and it stands for Make Me Feel Special. And that is one of the most critical things you can do in terms of building relationship with your customer. They're the most important person on the planet to you, and they want to feel that way. And the more you can make them feel that way, the more powerful your relationship will come. And that, of course, has to feel sincere. So you want to feel that way. And I know a lot of you out there in sales are already really good at that. But don't forget that Make Me Feel Special is one of the most powerful things you can do. People buy based on emotion first, logic second. Commandment number 3, probing questions are your key to success. Hear me, audience, if you hear me say one thing. I truly believe your ability to ask critical crucial, important questions is one of the most, if not the most important thing you do. It's absolutely one of the most important things that you do. The old adage that the gift of gab is the key to sales is absolutely 100% false. It couldn't be further from the truth. Great salespeople aren't great at making statements. Great salespeople are great at asking questions and then listening intently to their customer as their customer answers those questions. So we're going to talk about that. But probing questions are really what it's about. What kind of questions should I be asking? Again, that's a whole separate webinar, but I want to give you an example of some of these questions like that are open-ended. How important is that to you? How does that make you feel? How does that impact your bottom line? Can you explain that to me? How do you mean? And we're going to talk about how do you mean in future seminars, but let me make this point. If somebody says to you tomorrow, and I've done this in many seminars, I've asked the question, somebody says to you, your product is too expensive, what do you say? And you would be surprised how many of the salespeople I ask that question to go right into defense mode. And they go right into sales mode and they start going back to selling the benefits of their product. It's really, or their service. That's really not how we respond to that question. When somebody says it's too expensive, what should we say? Well, I think this last question is a great thing to say. How do you mean? And then be quiet. And they're going to say to you, well, man, the payment's just a lot more than I thought it was going to be. That's a lot more of an upfront investment than I thought I was going to have to pay. Boy, your product's a lot more expensive on the front end than what I'm currently purchasing. And when somebody says that to you, that gives you the opportunity then to confirm what that means. And that what you might be able to say is, so what you're really saying is it's the cost up front that's making you a little uncomfortable. And they say, absolutely. So, well, let's walk through that. Let's talk about how that looks. And then that gives you the opportunity to confirm, what benefits your product. It may be the usage versus the upfront cost. There may be some options that you have in terms of explaining to your client if for example, the payment's too high, of explaining, terms or some other things that you might be able to do to make sure. But we first have to confirm what expense means. It could be down payment, it could be terms, it could be, let's say your product, for example, I sold training for years, right? And it could be, well, gosh, Gary, 14,000 up front, it's a lot. And you say, well, what would be, when you say it's upfront, it's a lot, what do you mean? Is there any way we could split that out over time? Well, they didn't say that they're not willing to pay $14,000. They said $14,000 up front is going to be really difficult. And by me confirming that and understanding what they meant by expensive, I'm going to be able to spread those payments out or do some things to make it more affordable for my client without necessarily reducing my price. So think about that. I think it's really, really important. Commandment number 4, aggressive listening will set you apart. What do I mean by aggressive listening? That's a Captain Michael Abrashoff phrase that comes from his book, It's Your Ship. He talked about how much he did that when he was on the USS Binfold. Listen to your client aggressively. What do I mean by that? Truly listen. Great listeners don't interrupt. They lean in and nod as their client's talking to them, like you're seeing me do now. They're not distracted by their phone or by someone in the background or the phone ringing or someone interrupting. They parrot or paraphrase appropriately. And the key here is appropriately. You don't want to do it too much. And I'm going to tell you, there's a cell phone company out there that I've done business with that has obviously put their customer service people through this type of training because they paraphrase or parrot too much. You call up and say, hey, I want to talk to somebody about my bill. So what you're saying, Mr. Johnson, is you want to talk to somebody about your bill? Yes. What is it I can help you with? I'll be glad to help you. I'm kind of curious about this particular charge that I'm seeing, this service fee. So what you're saying is you're curious about the service fee. You do that about 5 times like that in a row, and now your customer's annoyed. So you have to be careful with that. And it's a good thing to do, but it has to be done sparingly, and it has to be done appropriately. And you'll learn how to do that as you develop your skills of interacting with clients. Last point about listening, and there's a lot of things great listeners can do. I'm just giving you some of the keys. But confirming your understanding before you move on to something else. It's really, really important when you're talking to somebody and you ask them a question and they answer it, for you to clearly listen, for you to pay attention, for you not to interrupt, to you lean in and nod in affirmation, to not be distracted, to paraphrase appropriately, and then to finally say, just to make sure I understand what you're saying here, John, to sum up what you're saying that, and then you do that. You sum up before you move on to the next thing to really make sure you have a clear understanding. You'd be surprised how often we misunderstand what our customer is saying, and then we begin to provide solutions to things that weren't even problems. So let's make sure we clearly understand, and the way we do that is through aggressive listening. Commandment number 5, features are not benefits. I cannot tell you how often I hear salespeople selling features. Features don't sell your products. Benefits do. The outcome that your products produce are what sells your product, not the features. Too many salespeople get wrapped up in talking about these features and not enough time talking about what really matters to your customer, benefits. Benefits are what the feature will provide to them. For example, move this out of the way. For example, the benefit, just a classic example, let's say somebody says that they have an online ordering system. Well, who cares? What is that? It's a feature. What's the benefit? The benefit of our system is the time it saves you. Quote, our online ordering system will allow you to get what you need in seconds, and just with a few simple clicks of a mouse, freeing you up to spend time on other things that you might need to work on now, more important things or whatever. That's a benefit statement. I'm describing the feature. I'm explaining the benefit. What's the benefit? My customer saves time. They're able to simply do it with a few clicks, and there's other benefits to that. It could be convenience. It could be, being able to multitask. There's a lot of things that you could describe there. But in this particular case, the example was freeing up time, and that's the benefit. I hope that makes sense to you. Whoops. Move that down here. Commandment number 6 is the product is not the product. Okay, a lot of us get hung up on our product and we really think that it's the widget, and it's really not the widget that our customer is buying. Our customer is buying the outcome that is achieved by our widget. It's what that particular product, service, or solution will give that client in terms of an outcome. That's really at the end of the day what they're buying. In addition to the outcome, the salesperson, the support team, the methodologies are all essential elements of any solution or any outcome. All those things are important. And a lot of times our clients will buy from us simply, as I mentioned in the beginning, because of us. Our product may be equal or close to equal to our competitor. Our price might be the same. It might be a little bit more. But at the end of the day, a lot of times they will buy from us because of our support, because of our customer service, because of our sales skills, our knowledge, being able to work with us on a regular basis, our follow-up skills. All those things are part of the outcome as well, and really important. The last thing anybody wants to do is buy a product that gives them a really good outcome, but the company has terrible service, or I can never get a hold of the salesperson, or if I have a question or an issue, I can never talk to anybody. Those are all key elements in your success. Commandment number 7 in relationship selling is problem solving comes well before solution selling. So let's talk about that. The size of the problem that you're solving determines the size of the opportunity, and the price is only relevant if they want what you're offering. If they don't want it, it doesn't matter. Your price could be $1 gazillion. If they don't want it, it doesn't matter. It could be 50 cents. It could be free, and it doesn't matter. Price is only relevant if that particular customer is interested in what it is you're offering. Here's the key. This is huge. Hear me if you hear one thing about relationship selling. Nothing ever gets purchased where the customer is happy until value outweighs the price. We have to create value for our client before talking about what it's going to cost. Price is what I think Warren Buffett said this, price is what you pay for something. Value is what you get for what you pay. Value must outweigh price for clients to say yes. It's our job, ladies and gentlemen, as consultative relationship selling professionals to show our clients how our product or service, how that value of that outweighs what they're going to pay for it. And ladies and gentlemen, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes, as we're going to get to at the end of this commandment, the last commandment, sometimes it's okay to get to a no. And so we're going to talk about that as well, okay? Number eight commandment in relationship or consultative selling is your follow up. And I cannot tell you how many times in sales that I see salespeople do a really, really great job of finding the customer, prospecting, evaluating, qualifying, doing all those wonderful things. Finally get to a yes, and then they end the relationship or they stop following up. The key to great sales is follow up after the sale. That follow up after the sale. How are things going? How are you enjoying our solution? What impact is this having on your business? All those things will lead to repeat sales and referral business. It's critical. Please hear me. Follow up is one of your absolute best friends. Don't be afraid to follow up. Don't be afraid if they're upset. You're much better off to follow up and say, how are things going? And they go, terrible. This isn't doing what I thought it was going to do. And have you figure out why, than to ignore them and have them out talking bad about you to somebody else because they were misinformed or didn't understand what they were doing with your product or service. Critical, critical thing. Last point, and I mentioned this earlier before we get into how to use these tools. Commandment number 9, avoid playing let's pretend. Let's pretend doesn't work. There are 3 answers we can get from a potential client, right? And 2 of them are good. The best answer we can get in most cases is yes, right? Sometimes yes can be bad. You say, how could that be bad? Somebody says yes, and they're just going to be, the value they provide to our business is by buying is not outweighed by the amount of maintenance they may cause. So sometimes a yes can be not a good thing, but most of the time it is. No is the second best answer I can get. Yes is the best answer I can get. No is the second best answer I can get. Why? Because I'd much rather get a no than get to the worst thing I can hear, which is maybe or I want to think about it. Maybe or I want to think about it is very difficult for us to do anything with. Of course, when somebody says maybe or they say I want to think about it, of course I want to say, well, Mr. Customer, let me make sure I understand. All these things we talked about today, you said you liked this, you said you liked that, you said you agreed that this made sense, you agreed that this was going to help your business. Based on all of that, you're still at a point where you want to think about it. Can I ask you, did I miss something? And that's going to tell you if it's a false objection or a real objection, or what's really going on there. If they say no, I just really want to think about it, that doesn't always mean it's bad, because there could be, when we can confirm what think about it means and say, when you say you want to think about it, you said I haven't missed anything, what is it, may I ask, Mr. Customer, that you still feel you've got to figure out? And they may say, gosh, it's just a lot of money, or it's a lot more than I was planning on spending, or we really didn't have it in this year's budget, or I want to go back and talk to the committee, or whatever it might be. We can still get to that point and then put a follow-up on it. And if at that point we don't get our yes, we might be better off just to go ahead and shake hands and part friends. Playing let's pretend, where we continue to pretend like we're going to do business, is a major waste of our time, and it's a resource I can't afford to waste in sales. I only have so much time, and I have to use that time well. And if I don't do that, I could end up wasting a lot of it. So it's a really important point. I will tell you, I see a lot of salespeople get trapped here. A lot of salespeople go back and think they have a deal coming, or think that this particular situation is going to turn out positive, and really they've got somebody that just can't say no. And so we want to set upfront contracts, and we're going to talk about that as we kind of go. Okay, couple last points I want to make today. Relationship selling is not a magic potion. It's a process. Okay, it's really important to know that. It's not a magic potion. It's not a secret sauce. It's not a catchy close phrase or a certain thing that you can say to somebody that's going to get them to magically say yes. There is no magic potion that will provide you with long-term success. What's going to do that is your actions. Your actions will dictate your results, period. One of the best salespeople I've ever met used to say that to me and a bunch of other people that were in sales at the time. And he said, you know what, guys and gals? He said, you can't dictate or predict your result, or you cannot dictate or create your results. But what you can do is dictate and create your activities. It's your activities that will provide or create your results. Use a process and follow it religiously. My activities are my process, my follow-up, my phone calls, filling my pipeline. Once I do all those things, those are all still part of relationship selling. And then when I do get in front of the client, following a system. following a system like we're going to talk about in the future, which is really, how do I take all these things you've told me about, Gary, these 9 commandments, how do I really use them? Winging it's not a process. Prepare for success by using this system that I've described to you today for all the things that you do: finding customers, qualifying customers, evaluating whether or not you're a good fit, and through that process, building your customer base. All those things are steps in your process. Getting in front of the customer, going through the probing process is just one of those steps you must follow, and it's critical for your success. Okay, that being said, what do you guys think when you see this, when you see these 9 steps? Are you thinking, I can do this? Are you thinking, Gary's crazy, this will never work? I'm curious about how you feel, and I want you to interact with me as you see this, and I want to talk about it. Relationship selling is a critical element of success in the workplace. It's the best way, in my opinion, to sell. It's the way people want to be interacted with that are buying something. And follow these commandments. Remember that it's a process. Remember to follow these things when you're out there selling to your clients, whether you're selling oil, whether you're selling lubricants, whether you're selling financial services, orthodontics, it doesn't matter what you're selling. Follow these steps. I will promise you they will lead to your success. Thank you for watching today. Look forward to visiting with you in our next webinar. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.